Welcome to Planet Venus YouTube and podcast. My name is Dr. V, or some people call me Dr. Venus Evans Winters. And here on our YouTube channel, we have my very, very beautiful and brilliant co-hosts, Raven Preston and Aniah Francis. And today, our guest on Planet Venus is Drea, right? And I'm telling y'all need to go Google her because I was straight fangirling, and I was like, I could just articulate my words like this. Then people
I'm
would
getting
listen to me. So we have the artist slash activist slash black girl, black woman leader, Drea Morney, right here. And I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to turn over the mic to my co-host, Raven, and I'll let her get us started.
Yes. Hi, Drea. I'm so glad to see you. So the last time I really saw you was when you left AmeriCorps, and I'm still trying to figure out how you got from that point to where you are now, and what was that journey like?
Okay, well, to start off, hey everybody, what's up? It's the poet, the artist, the creator, and energy curator, Drea, right? We're live in the 501, and you know what's up. So, Raven, to answer your question, and to be completely honest, I really stepped into a space where I'm, honestly sharing my story because I feel like it can help other people. But when I came to Dallas to do City Year, it was because, first of all, I do love working with youth, but I signed up for that job as a way to escape a relationship that I was in. So in Atlanta, I was married, well, technically still married by law, but I was in a toxic relationship and I was like, I have to go. So I signed up, came there, and was really just trying to find myself because I felt really lost. But I know working with youth really, it was a passion of mine. Like, I was considered an average youth growing up, and there was people who entered my life that helped me, choose a different path. So I always like to give back in that way. So again, I came there, I did the City Year for about 2 months. But while I was doing it, it was like, man, I knew they said it wasn't gonna pay a lot, but wow.
Yeah,
I feel that.
I don't know how this is gonna work. So I did do that for 2 months, and I just had an honest conversation with one of the directors, whatever you want to call them, and I parted ways, and I actually ended up going back to Atlanta and just going through that whole toxic relationship cycle, the back and forth, until I really was just like, you know what? Scratch that. I don't want to go to my grave unhappy or feeling unfulfilled. So I really started dedicating my time and my focus to doing things that I enjoyed, that really fed my soul and made me happy. And it was definitely a long process, but it was well worth it, because I'm definitely in a better and healthier space in my life. Like the other day, I was literally looking in the mirror and I was so happy. I was like, wow, I wish I could pull this out and put it on somebody, because I'm just really internally grateful for where I am now. So how I got from where I was at AmeriCorps to where I am now was through hard work and dedication, and being very intentional with myself, sowing positive words and messages and images into my own body until I started to believe that I was deserving and worthy of all things great, of all things related to happiness.
Wow.
Drea, how did you find that route? Because for me, whether I'm working with students, graduate students, undergraduate students, or if I'm working as a clinician, as a psychotherapist, or even as a mindfulness meditation teacher, I'm always, reminding people to be intentional with their lives. But you just said something for me that was like an aha moment. You said that you found a way to be happy. So have you come to your purpose? And for you, what does intentional look like?
So definitely, I do believe I've always known my purpose, but through life, you go through these weird phases to where you you know, you just have to learn some hard lessons, because some of us are just hard-headed and like to learn the hard way for whatever reason. So as I learned my lesson and I decided that my happiness is not tied to anybody else and that it's nobody else's responsibility. So I had to really look inward and accept accountability for the role I played in my own demise, and not keep pointing the finger at everybody else and playing victim. Like, I wrote a poem and said, ain't it crazy how we self-destruct and then have the nerve to cry after we planned our own demise, talking about, I can't believe this happened to me, lie like we surprised a damsel in distress, pretending like you stuck. Get up, because ain't nobody coming to save you. So
told y'all.
Like,
yes.
I had an aha moment, like, wow, it's your responsibility. So I had to let go of things that I was just holding on to for dear life for whatever reason, which was a toxic relationship that really looked good externally, but on the inside it was missing a few pieces and it did not work. But when I let it go, you know, being intentional for me looked like me deciding, hey, do you want to be sad forever and be in the comfort of somebody that actually makes you uncomfortable? Or do you want to just go ahead, cry in the Camry for a couple of months and then be over it and then be living your best life? So again, I had to make a decision to leave, and I left with what I had on my back, because what I had inside me, I felt like, wow, you know, I know God got to have something better for me. I know this is not how life should be for me. You know, I did not want to go to my grave unhappy. Like, that sounds scary, to die and not have been happy. So when I left, I had to detach myself and let go of everything. So again, I had to start from the bottom, but even starting from the bottom, I was still positive. So being intentional was like constantly feeding myself positive thoughts. So every morning I'm waking up like, Drea, oh, it's okay that, you know, you don't got nowhere to live no more. You done had thousands of dollars taken from you. It's okay, because God's going to multiply all that in due time. So I had to keep convincing myself that, I had to keep telling myself that, I had to keep visualizing myself in a better and a happier space until I got there. I went to counseling every week. I cried. I wrote. I did what I had to do. I wrote down positive notes on my desk every day. Like, I am the one. I'm chosen. I know God put me here for a purpose. I'm the one, the two, and the three. I am number one. Two is not a winner. Three, nobody remembers. Like, I'm destined for abundance, greatness, and happiness. I'm deserving. I'm worthy. Because what we feed our ears and our eyes is so important. So I was listening to motivational speeches every day, getting myself hyped. Like, oh, okay, you broke today, but that's okay. Sis, you about to run into a bag. And, you know, I just kept doing it until I believed it, because there's power in, again, what you speak and what you think, what you visualize, and what you do. So I had a counselor tell me one time, she said, you have to make a decision on your life. And once you make that decision, you have to make choices that line up with that decision. So I made a decision on my life that I was going to be happy, that I was not going to continue to participate in a toxic relationship. And then every day I was intentional on making choices that lined up with that decision that I made. Because I could have easily fell back into that cycle, which I had done in the past so many times. But I was like, no, something got to be different, because, you know, my siblings are looking up to me, you know, and I don't ever want to just be a bad example or make them think that it's okay to live unhappy for the sake of looking happy.
Wow. That's good.
That was good. So, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying thank you.
So this journey has led you to a space now where you're occupying roles of activism, of being an organizer, of being a poet, a model, an author. What do these roles mean to you? And is there one that you're specifically passionate about right now?
I said, what do these roles mean to me?
Yes, to occupy those spaces now, considering where you started in your journey.
Yeah, so where I am now, like living more intentionally and being a community leader with being a faux model, because I just like to take pictures, but people think I'm a model, so I'll take it. and being a poet, those well, first off, I start off with being a community leader. I feel like my existence represents something so much greater than me. I remember when I was 19, I had became a bank teller. And never in my life had I thought I couldn't be one. But it wasn't until I saw another Black girl being a bank teller that it was like, oh, you can do that too. So I just think about how powerful that image was, like how powerful it was to see somebody doing something that helped lead me into a career path that I really enjoyed. You know, I really love money. I mean, who don't? But I learned so much from that. But again, what I'm saying is what she represented for me changed my life. So I'm a person, I love to help people. I love to inspire and uplift people and make them understand that you really can do anything that you want in this world. So I try to carry myself in a manner that will hopefully and prayerfully create a domino effect where other people look at me like, oh, she's young, Black, she's doing this. That means I can do it too. So to be a community leader, that role is important for me because I feel like, you know, in our community, we just have to have more positive representation so that we can, you know, create a generation of people who have confidence, who know that they are worthy and that they belong in any space that they want to be in, and that they understand that they literally can go above and beyond and do whatever it is they want to do in life. As a poet, my background is in teaching poetry and creative writing. So I've been doing poetry since 6th grade. So when I graduated, well, all throughout my life, I've done poetry. So from middle school, high school, I had a poetry group. I organized the Poetry Out Loud competition for the school level. And then when I graduated high school, I went on to teach poetry and creative writing, which was very important to me because art is like the cheapest form of therapy. So with poetry, not only do I perform it, but I teach it and I write it because it's therapeutic again. So in teaching it, I'm able to show students, especially at-risk students, how to use it as a coping mechanism and to help them increase their communication and comprehension skills, which, you know, I'm very big on, especially when it comes to Black kids. Like, you know, I realize that our communication is often off for whatever reason I cannot figure out, because I've worked with a lot of kids. So to see that, I'm just like, you know, how can I help in that manner so that we can get our communication skills up and know how to articulate how we feel when we're thinking, and to do it in a healthy way that's productive for ourselves. As a model, I'm all for body positivity. If you didn't know, I'm weighing in at a whopping 250. And
girl, look at you.
And today is National Curves Day. I did want to put that out, but I'm all for, you know, just celebrating ourselves and who we are and the skin that we're in. So with my women's group, Hey Sis, is based on body positivity and just being confident in yourself and who you are and working with what you got. So
wait, so you got Hey Sis, you already modeling, and we know you a dope ass poet, and we know you got another women's group. So name all the not all the organizations, name all the organizations that you lead and facilitate.
So the Women's Social Society is like the overarching brand, and then Hey Sis is like my subgroup, you know, where we talk about some crazy stuff. It's a Facebook group, so, you know, we post pictures and we talk about crazy stuff, off the wall stuff as well. So I have the Women's Social Society. Hey Sis is a branch under it. I'm also a part of a group, which is the community leaders group that I'm a part of, where we do monthly events to cater to and uplift our community, and it's called The Movement. And I do that with a few of my friends, June Young, Tim Campbell, Oya the Poet, and Darren Kidd. So I'm a part of that. What else?
Wow. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Motivate.
Cultivate. Oh, so I do have an initiative that I'm starting called Cultivate. So again, I really love to motivate people. Like, I want you to believe that you can pick up a car when you leave and actually go out and do it. So I have an initiative called Cultivate, and it's basically an initiative where we'll have motivational quotes, phrases, images, and poems throughout the city, where they'll be painted positive images and messages painted on murals, and we'll have decals on like different businesses and posters just randomly throughout the city with motivational phrases. Because again, going back to what I said earlier, what we feed our ears and our eyes is important. So it's important that you do that intentionally, but also on a subconscious level. Just imagine walking through the city and seeing a random quote. When I was in 10th grade, there's this poster in the classroom, and it said, "Excuses stop at the door." And that literally always stuck with me. And it put me in a place where I'm never making excuses for not accomplishing something that I want to do, because I realize, if you want something to happen, you're going to find a solution to it. So with that phrase, that one phrase that stuck to me, it made me understand the importance of, how important images are for us. So with Cultivate, I want to be able to do that for our city. Can y'all see me?
Nope.
There you go. We can see you now, but it goes in and out sometimes.
Yeah,
there you go. Yep.
Yeah, so again, with Cultivate, it'll be basically motivation through the literary and visual arts, where we'll have murals painted throughout the city, posters, decals on different businesses, so that we can continue to like feed the subconscious mind of people. Because what we take in, sometimes we're unaware of, but there's little things we take in that contributes to how we think, feel, and behave. So I want to be able to plant positive seeds into people in that manner.
So Drea, now wait, Black don't crack. I think that's a proverb. And so can you share with Planet Venus a little bit about how? So when I hear you, I'm thinking like, wow, Black don't crack, right? And then I'm thinking, I hear you talk about your past history of relationship abuse, violence, toxicity, however we want to define that, right? So how do you go from being a little girl who clearly was a creative, even then, a strong voice, to ending up being entrapped in a toxic relationship, then deciding, I'm out? Because there's something about you that you said, I'm out. But what was it? What happened between that childhood and the toxic relationship? In your opinion, as much as you feel comfortable sharing.
Well, again, I'm in the season of being honest. But growing up, I did witness, physical abuse in the household. So, just around me, I've just witnessed toxic relationships that really just lasted and still are going. So I was always aware of it, and I was just like, I would never do that. Of course, we always say that, I was mindful of it, I was aware, but to still end up trapped in it, that's actually what I went to counseling for. I was asking, why did I do that? And there's really no way to really explain it, because I feel like the situation I was in, just with a narcissist, is very contradicting and, so manipulative, to the point after a few times, it's just like, okay, this isn't, that's you, like, that's how you're going to be. A lot of times, we think, okay, you have a mistake and you're able to move on, but it's like when it keeps happening over and over, it's just like, okay, I start to realize that an apology don't mean it won't happen again. It just means until next time. And I got to the point where I was like, I'm not gonna give you the opportunity to have a next time, because the person that I was with, like, he don't give up. So that made it hard. For somebody to treat you wrong, but then if they mess up, they'll do everything. If you told them to go lick the concrete, would do it, but was still backtracking to that. And it's just like, okay, wait, I don't want to keep having to do this. So at this point, it's my responsibility to make sure it never happen again. And the only way to ensure that is to remove myself completely from the situation, so that you'll never have the opportunity to do that again. So thinking about, what happened from my childhood to being in that, I know I struggled a lot with feeling inadequate and like I wasn't doing enough. Like my relationship with my dad, was very strange, you know. So it's one thing not to have your daddy in your life, but it's another thing when you know him and you see him just throughout the city, but with his other kids. So I was actually born from an affair. So I was like the outside child, which made me feel like a side chick of my dad, because he would come see me very sporadically, and we would literally just sit in my driveway and we would talk, and he would ask the same questions. How old are you again? When your birthday? What school you go to? So our relationship never extended beyond that concrete pavement of my yard of my mama's house. So I never knew where my daddy stayed. Did not know his kids, his wife, his family. I absolutely did not know nobody until high school. I ended up asking him, you know, what's your kid's name? And I found him on Facebook, and I was like, hey, I'm your sister. And we started a relationship, and then they came to my high school graduation, and they bought an uncle. They bought my uncle, and my uncle, literally the day after I met him, he took me to meet the whole family, which my daddy had never did. So experiencing that feeling of like blatant disregard, it made me feel like I was not enough, because I remember always feeling like I had to try to overachieve or do something great to make him believe that, you know, I was good enough to be represented, because it was
acknowledged.
Right. And there was one thing, I was actually volunteering. I was part of a program for Everest Youth, matter of fact, and they had us volunteering at a summer camp called Mind Your Own Business for elementary kids, and I was in middle school, and I ended up volunteering in the class that my little brother was in. So mind you, me and my little brother, we always ended up going to the same school for whatever odd reason. And I had saw my dad, and I hadn't seen him in a long time, so I was excited. So I, ran up to him and was like, hey, gave him a hug and everything, because mind you, I'm still a kid and just loose brain. And his wife was with him, and I had never met her either. So when I did that, she asked, who was that? And he was like, oh, that's what's her name. So I feel like, that always plays in my head too. Like, wow, I'm your child. First of all, I look the most like you. We're the same skin color. And like for you to stand in my face and say, what's her name? Like you did not know my name. That was like really, really painful. So I do believe that contributed to the toxic relationship that I was in, and like just how, I felt about myself. So yeah, those are a couple of things, going through life, witnessing abuse and toxic relationships, and feeling inadequacy because of the absence of my dad. I think that definitely contributed to my experience. But again, coming into awareness of that, I think the most beneficial thing I did for myself was taking accountability. Like, now that you're aware, it's your choice to make something different happen, and nobody else's.
Wow.
Good. Thank you for sharing. I just think sometimes, Drea, that we see women like you, beautiful, smart, vociferous, and we tell girls or young women, we tell girls, be like her. And we tell young women who are still developing, you can do it if she did it. But I think where we go wrong is we don't talk about how we got here. We don't talk about that, I bumped my head. I fucked up at one point.
Right.
And this is how I bounce back. We just want these role models, or what I call fake models, right? That's what and without saying, this is how we got here. This is what we went through to get here, right? So that's why I'll ask you to share, the depths of that journey as an artist,
and I'm glad you did, because again, growing up, I feel like I dealt with like the golden child syndrome. Everybody looked up to me and thought highly of me. So to make a mistake felt wrong. So if I dealt with something, or if I feel like I failed, I did not share it. So being an adult now, And this is something I was writing on my board every day. Like, Lord, show me how to use my voice tastefully and tactfully so that I can communicate what I experienced to be able to help somebody else. Because one thing that I really did love about my mama, she did not ever try to make herself seem perfect. Like, she was real with us. She told me about the mistakes she made. And I realized I had to humanize myself and let go of that idea that I had to be perfect, because that's not realistic, and it does nothing for nobody to act like you don't do nothing wrong. So I just felt that was important, especially now, to talk about what I've experienced, because people don't expect it. You know, they just don't expect it. So when they hear it, it's just like, oh my God, I can't believe that. And I'm like, shit, I can't either, but it happened. So even in my book, 17 Mirrors, I was actually still in a toxic relationship, but I was writing about it as if, you know, I wrote about my experiences, but I also spoke of it as
Say the book name again, because we love to shout out a sister. What's the book name again, Drika? We name drop around here.
My book is called 17 Mirrors.
Okay, 17 Mirrors. I got that. You got that, Raven, for the discussion comments?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that book is literally dedicated to, it discusses toxic relationships and the coming of age of a growing girl and learning to accept accountability. So in that book, I got to say stuff that I was too scared to really verbalize. And I remember doing an interview with somebody, and she asked me a question, and I was so ashamed and too scared to answer it that I was like, yeah, let's not, don't ask me that. I'm not answering that. And that made me realize how much pain and shame I was holding on to, that I feel like I shouldn't hold on to it, because, when you hold on to things, that's you still allowing it to take space in your heart, and I'm at a point now where it's like, I'm not letting it take space inside me. Like, I know God has made me to use my voice, and I feel like this is such a big part of my story, because it was such a traumatizing and enlightening event that I literally probably almost think about every day. So it's just like, how do I use this to help somebody and move on?
Wow. Well, I want to go back to what you said in the beginning when you talked about you wanted to take your image and put it onto other people. And I thought that was really powerful that you said it that way, because I feel like you're doing that with Quotivate. Like, you are literally putting yourself, Quotivate with everything that you're doing, and putting yourself inserting yourself into other, like, your positivity in other people's lives. And I guess it's contagious, because I remember back in the day, like, when I was like, oh, I write poetry, like, you were always like, all right, let me hear you say it, and then you would make me say it, and I'd be like, I'm too scared.
I'm scared now.
I'm still scared. But just seeing, I saw the value you placed on sisterhood really early on when I met you. I mean, I remember being in the cabin, dancing to Level Up with like 5 other girls, like, and we're like, we're gonna do some talent show. We never did it. But what role, like, how it's really cool to see how you have prioritized sisterhood, even though you have all these other avenues. So what role did sisterhood play in not only like the women's society, but you talk about your sister a lot in your interviews, and you talk about it in your book a lot too. So yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. So the value I place on sisterhood, I think, is very important. First of all, my mama had 5 kids, and I just think sibling relationships are some of the greatest relationships, and that's why I want to have 7 kids, because I just feel like, the kind of relationship you develop with siblings is beautiful. Raven, why you grabbing your chest?
Oh, I was grabbing something else too. Dang.
Touching her pearl.
Jesus. Okay, continue.
Right. So that is very important at the core of it all. I realized I would hear women say all the time, like, I hang with females. I just hang with more so dudes, because such a broken relationship with women that you believe you can't hang out with them and that you can only hang out with dudes. Like, that's sad. But then I thought about it deeper, like, you know, why do you have a broken relationship with? And I think that's because a lot of people come from broken relationships with their moms. And I had a positive relationship with my mama, like a very, very positive. Well, I have a positive relationship with my mama that was always enlightening. And I'm just like, everybody, y'all, we all need to get together. We need to rewrite the story, rewrite the narrative. Like, women and us together is powerful. So to create that sisterhood, because again, I think us as women, we need to stick together more, definitely. So that definitely played a role in it. And then again, you know, I do have a younger sister who I know looks up to me. And one thing I talk about a lot too is the fact that when I was in high school, I remember my sister, she wants to be a social worker, and like, you know, the line of work she wants to go in requires her to have a degree. Now me, I'm an artist, but I also did like business. But being the first to graduate and go to high school, graduate high school and go to college and graduate in my family, I felt like I couldn't keep telling her, hey, you know, go to school, go to college, do this, and then you can do it. Like, I couldn't make her believe that she could do it if I did not set an example. So, you know, even as a teenager, I was thinking like years ahead, like, how can I use myself to lead the path for somebody else to, again, create a domino effect that's going to, you know, create generations of empowered people.
Makes a
so
difference.
Sisterhood is very, very important, and I take it very seriously. I'm also an auntie too, which I really, you know, take a lot of pride in.
That's all on my shirt today for you. Sisterhood is a form of therapy. I wore this for you today.
Love it.
I need that.
Fly by night. I'll send it to you. Ooh.
Is it freezing?
Yes. Does anyone else have any other questions?
No, you're fine. You're fine. Aniah was jumping in. I think
Okay.
that's
It was, but then it like started freezing for me. So I was like, I don't know if I can go.
Yeah.
So you've hosted many other events. I wanted to know, what part of your life does the Sex Night Live and Sex on Stage represent for you?
Okay. So you said Sex Night Live
and Sex on Stage represent for you?
Oh, okay. So.
Oh, we talking about sex? That was my question.
Let's talk about you and me. So.
Let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me. We have a low budget podcast, so we don't have the extra music. I just thought that I would, like, you know, add the sound.
Both of y'all can team up. I'll sing Pretty Ricky.
Let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me.
Well, let's
turn to a cappella group.
Right.
So, when I competed as a teenager, I went to Tampa, Florida, and I competed in one of the second largest poetry slams in the world called Southern Fried. And there was this guy named Moses West. You know, I started following him after the competition, and he would do this show called Sex on Stage. So I wanted to do a big show at school. So I was just thinking, you know, what can I do that's edgy and like just off the wall, where I can incorporate art and just bring people out? Because again, I love curating events. I'm like the energy curator. That's what I like to claim myself as. So I ended up talking to him, and I was like, you know, I want to do this program here, but I actually want it to be focused on sex education, because his show is more so just, you know, a sensual event where, you know, they bring out the works. Not that they have sex on stage, but it's real sensual, real erotic. So, and I started doing this when I was 18. I did the first one in college at UCA, and it turned out good. I had about 50 people come, and I was just so excited. But the next year, I remember it got so packed that we had to start bringing in more chairs, and then we had to open up the other side of the ballroom just to let everybody in. And from then, it just grew to hundreds of people coming out every year and anticipating that event, because it was fun. You know, it was fun, and it was like low-key educational, but it wasn't preachy. So there was this initiative on campus called Get Yourself Tested, and I feel like, you know, a lot of people aren't receptive to that. Just get yourself tested. People probably thinking, well, I need to get myself tested. Ain't nothing wrong with me. I don't see nothing on my vagina or my little wing, so I'm good. But with sex on stage, people want to know, are y'all gonna be having sex on stage? But not realizing that sex on stage is a sex education performance art show, to where we're educating people through the arts, where people come and talk about different aspects of sex through everything. So we have people come and dance, do poetry, model, sing, and what I would have the host do, like, we would do like little fun games and little fun true false question activities to where people could win prizes, and we would do a bunch of myth busters, because it's crazy. Like a lot of people think that and especially college students, which is why I felt this was important to do, think that you can tell if somebody has an STD or not. Like you can just look at somebody and know, not realizing that STDs can be asymptomatic to where you don't show any symptoms. Like we talk about consent, how important consent is. We talked about infidelity, abortions, rape. Like it just, especially with things we discussed where people, they leave feeling like they've actually learned something, but it was also entertaining because, again, we had people performing. So some of the models, they would walk through with big poster boards, you know, doing a little sexy catwalk, and, you know, people looking at them like, oh, you know, she fine or he fine. But they're also reading this board that says, did you know when you go to get tested for, when you go to get your yearly exam, they don't check for HSV, which is one of the most common STDs. So you have to literally ask for that. So a lot of people can, you know, feel like they're in the clear because they done got this test, not realizing you didn't get all the tests that you need. So again, sex on stage, it came in a time in my life where I was really trying to step out, organizing big level events in college. So this year made the 8th year I've done it. The year before last, I did it in Atlanta. Now, that one was a little more raunchy, but nevertheless, it was very educational.
Very educational, okay.
Very, yep. Yeah, and originally it was called Sex on Stage, but then I changed the name to Sex Night Live.
You changed the name to?
Sex Night Live.
Oh, Sex Night Live. Okay. And what is your? Yeah. and what is your age? Like your intended age for that particular event?
So originally in college, it was just any college student. So that could have ranged from like 17 and up. My target audience now preferably is 18 and up. But if it's on a college campus, it's just, whoever makes it. You don't get.
So do you still do that work? Do you still do that kind of work? Sex, reproductive health works, sex education?
Do I do sex work? I don't know. Is it classified as work? No, okay, anyway. Yes. So again, I was actually going to travel Sex Night Live this year, but Corona hit and just messed everything up. So my last, which I usually only do it once a year, but this year I was going to take it to the next level and travel. I was actually going to hit Dallas, Memphis, and go back to Atlanta. But the last one was this past January. So hopefully next year Corona will have eased up so we can actually have an in-person show. If not, we'll just have to go virtual. So I'm definitely still all for sex education and people knowing how to be protected and knowing the importance of consent and, different contraceptive methods and reproductive health information. Like there's just so much that we're able to give out.
I'm really intrigued about this because years ago, it seems like years ago, in college, we were hit really hard. It's similar to what you all are experiencing now with COVID-19. Our health pandemic at that time was actually HIV and AIDS. And I don't know if you know this, Draco, but I look at Black girls and women's experiences through what's now called an intersectional lens, race, class, and gender. and sexuality. And so back then I heard all these people, that, especially white people, they were talking about HIV and AIDS as if it was a gay man's disease. And then you had the Black community, we were talking about it as if it was something that could only affect like drug users or gay Black men. And I said, wait a minute, when you're looking at the demographics, the statistics, you actually see the fastest growing population was Black women. So even then I had the insight to know, like, oh my gosh, guess who's going to be infected and nobody cares. Nobody's going to talk about it as a health pandemic, right? And so I started doing this one-woman show, Drea, where I was just talking about Black women's sexual experiences, our trauma and our joys, right? Our pains, our frustrations, our celebrations around sex, sexuality, reproductive health, and sensuality, right? Cue Audre Lorde, right? Black erotica. And I mean, it was the 90s, y'all. We were living it up, okay? We had Salt and Pepper, MC Light. Y'all know I always have my go-tos, right? So we were living it up. So it wasn't no turning back, right? But we had to change our behaviors and our thinking, and we had to begin to advocate for ourselves. And then later on, I ended up doing some of this work in South Africa and later in Ghana. And so, Drea, I'm curious for you, what is the relationship between art and sexual health and sexual reproductive health in Black girls and Black women's empowerment? Do we still have you, Drea? I'll ask, you know what? I'll ask you that question, Raven, until Drea comes back.
Okay. Well, when you were talking, it made me think of for colored girls who've considered suicide when rainbows enough. Yeah. And that's exactly what I was thinking the whole time. I kind of forgot the question.
Yeah, so I was just wondering, like, what is the relationship between Black girls, Black women's, empowerment around sexual reproductive health, sensuality, and our advocacy, right? It comes to, I mean, now it just so happened to be the coronavirus, but HIV is still there, right? And other STIs.
Absolutely.
So what is the role of art in this, of art and creativity, or even like wax poetics?
It makes me it makes me think of, like, as Black women, really women of color, but specifically Black women, how we have this distrust for the medical field. And so we have to get that information out in a way that is going to reach and is going to be credible. And art has always kind of been that space where we as a culture, a Black culture, have been able to explore ourselves and our identities. And so it only makes sense that art would do that for Black women, and educate them about sexual health in a way that can't be achieved. Like, I don't think it can be achieved with such effectiveness without art. And even Black women like yourself and Drea coming out and talking about these things, which I really would think would be cool to bring her on to talk for the Black Girls Mental Health Academy.
I was thinking the same thing. I was like, girl, I was gonna text you, Raven. We gotta get her on. We gotta get her in there. We gotta get her. We're gonna have us an art poetry. Yeah.
Yes.
And so Aniah, you're kind of where I was back then. Black don't crack, so I won't tell. But here I am as a sociologist major, trying to get the message out around, Black women's sexual reproductive health. And I know about your research on Black girls, trauma and stress. And so that's what I ran into, Aniah. It's like, how much of this is about sexual liberation and proclaiming and reclaiming my body and sensuality, while also acknowledging that sometimes what looks like a choice isn't a choice. So, Aniah, how do we grapple with that? Like the intersection of what Raven is saying, science, reclaiming our bodies and our sensuality, right, as a human right, and, at the same time, centering our complex relationship with sex, and sexuality. So how do we bring all that together, the art of it?
I think when looking at it, because there's a lot to unpack in one go, is the fact that there's not a lot of education around it when it comes to us, and looking at that dynamic, especially like what we assume is choice versus this illusion of choice. And the fact that that discussion doesn't even really happen in a household setting, let alone like if you're going outside and it's like you're thinking you're doing this because you want to, but what is the relationship you have with your own body in a sense? And I think that's where it kind of comes to actually having those open and honest conversations, because I feel sometimes even in our head we're in situations where we're like, but is this what I want? Like very like on a subconscious level. And I think there's such a silence when having those conversations that like if we're using art, something that's already engaging people, to have those conversations, maybe we might be more mindful about everything that's taking place, but also like looking at the fact that like you're not the only person who's having these experiences. Like we're all probably having these experiences. We've all probably been in that situation one time or another, and we're allowing that to continue because we think that's what's normal.
Yeah.
Even having a space to even explore what you want in life is something different, because we have been so confined to like avoiding these stereotypes of like being the sexual Black woman that we have mammified ourselves, and we're not allowed to be within that spectrum. We have to be this or that. Because there's actually a podcast, and it's called Horrible Decisions, spelled like whore. But it's two, I think they're both Black women, the same woman of color, and they're talking about like sex, and like they're talking about it as in like in every aspect that you would think is totally not something that you can talk, that's something you cannot talk about in your own home, like talking about porn and like how important that is to like sexual stimulation to women, and what you're allowed to like, what you're not allowed to like, and like listening to that podcast helped me become more comfortable exploring that part of myself that I wouldn't have before, or I'd keep it a secret, you know. But it's once again, that's art, a podcast and things like that. This is an art form that we're able to resort to because we've been failed too often, and not just in the medical aspect, but in our own homes.
So the art form might actually be informing our choices, right? So whether you're pro porn or anti porn, if you see, because you know there's an abundance of literature that, especially male-centered pornography is as close as we get to child pornography, and
it is true,
sexual exploitation and blah blah blah. But I think I hear what you're saying, Raven, is it's still that the podcast itself is presenting these various viewpoints, right? Yeah. Welcome back, Drea. Welcome back.
Look, the conversation obviously got too hot because my phone got heated, and it's let me cool it down.
Yes.
What you saying? So you had your one woman show. I'm sorry, I did want to hear that part.
Yes. I hope we don't lose you again. Are you there? Okay. Yeah. So Drea, we were just talking about Raven's secret pornography life, and then you came back. So I used to do this one woman show where at the time HIV and AIDS was hitting the Black community hard, and Black women were being left out of the conversation. Black girls were being left out of the conversation. So I had to figure out real quickly as a sociologist, and mind you, I was only an undergraduate student, how to bring Black girls and Black women's stories into the fold. All of our manifestations, our you know, pains and joys around sex, our trauma around sex, transgenerational, you know, transgenerational harm and hurt that we carry And so I was just asking you, and then I was saying I took that work to South Africa to work in a high density HIV/AIDS community. And I remember I wrote about it in one of my books. You know, some people weren't feeling it, mostly the young Black men. Like, what the hell? You want to do what? You want to tell a woman to tell us to put on a condom? You done lost your mind, right? Yeah, and some of the women like, oh my gosh, Dr. V, you can't say that out loud. Like, that's our secrets. And I'm like, well, but I did it in a very artistic way, in my opinion, through playwriting, right? And through performances and drama, and saying those ugly words that I don't think we can say on YouTube or Apple Podcasts because they're going to censor us and they're going to ask us to go back. But that was pretty explicit.
Well, we
I'm
be
a Southside
quiet.
girl. I'm not shy when it comes to using my tongue to talk about sex. Yeah, we really going there today. But anyhow,
I know, right? Spicy.
I know. So, Drea, can you tell us, for you, like, what is the role of art in having conversations around Black girls and Black women's, you know, sexual reproductive health as empowering and historically possibly exploitive? So how do we get there? Like, how do we go there, you know, understanding there may be underlying pain and trauma, while also understanding that we have a human right to our sexuality and sensuality?
Okay. When it comes to art, I think Black people, we are naturally entertainers. We're artists, we're rappers, poets, writers, culinary artists. Like, we're creators by nature, and a lot of times we're more receptive to things when it's given to us in a creative way. So when it comes to women, you know, really owning our sexuality and where we stand in this sexual realm of pleasure, is that I really enjoy the women who can get on a verse and be like, hey, this is mine. I pop it for whoever I want to because I'm the owner, and I don't have to be ashamed of it, you know, because a lot of times women are demonized or looked down on if they're sexually free or if they have multiple partners. But for men, it's a double standard. So in this whole, you know, sex talk, when it comes to men and women, art is important, because when we have people that outwardly express, you know, what they feel and what people want to say but are too afraid to say, like, it gives people power. Like, even the song WAP, you know, for some people that was empowering. Like, I got this clapback for you, it's mine and I can do what I want. And even Summer Walker, she said girls need love too. Baby, I'm gonna need more than a handshake, more than a hug, you know. She letting you know, like, I have those feelings too, and I shouldn't be ashamed about it. You know, a lot of times, and because with that shame being around sex, I believe that's why a lot of women don't even have orgasms, because they feel like they're just supposed to be cute and just they're supposed to lay there. And
or nobody told them that was a thing. Yeah. You know, no one told them that was an option.
They don't know, like, you're supposed to have fun too, you know, and enjoy it, and not just let somebody use your right. Like, you know, you're not just to be used as an object. Like, you're there to willingly participate if that's what you want to do. But at the end of the day,
so how do we balance sensual art, especially in a capitalist culture where they since day one they've been commodifying Black girls' bodies, but young Black women's body, right? And in other ways, boxing in older Black women's bodies. It's like, okay, you 25, you done, we done with you, right? I was thinking about, you know, WAP, and I thought I was gonna see the WAP, you know, like, hey. Okay, well, I went to go see WAP, right? I saw it, and I thought this is a great time to have this conversation with my daughter while drinking coffee and, like, eating greens, eggs. I'm like, look, yeah, what you think about the WAP video? She went silent on me, Drea. Like, you could hear a pin drop. And she, like, rolled her eyes at me like I was wasting her time. So I was still trying to be cool about it. And I said, well, I was just wondering, you know, because I talked to your dad about it. And then I think she got uncomfortable. And she said, well, I don't know why everybody's like critiquing and analyzing what they're wearing and how they're dancing and what they're saying, because nobody critiques, male rappers for their bodies and what they're wearing. And then I was like, oh, because I had nothing left. I was like, oh, but Cardi B's, her eyebrows were a fleek. Yeah, and by the way, Cardi B, since she had that baby, her split ain't as deep anymore as Megan Thee Stallion.
Oh God.
It was like,
Wow.
That's sexist. Now, I don't know, because we've all done these performances when it comes to sex and sexuality before our parents.
Mm-hmm.
Let's keep it real. So in this moment, I didn't know if I was being played or I had a Black feminist on my hands who was like, look, can we appreciate their art? Because she talked about Cardi B just had better cadence and flow, and her lyrics had more depth than Megan Thee Stallion's. And
Really? I would not agree.
Yeah, well, at least you don't agree, Raven. I was too busy thinking about how deep Megan's split was. So clearly I'm the only superficial one here. So clearly.
I wasn't that into it.
I'm still mad that old girl even made it into the video. She was just a waste of a... Yeah, I'm like, why they didn't clip her? Clip that part. Clip. She should have made the cutting room floor, but we're racial. Rainbow feminists. I don't know what we are. But what do you think, Reka? So where's the wiggle room between art and critique?
I think people always have their opinions. You're entitled to have your opinion. I just feel like, you shouldn't, be intentional and try to downgrade or hurt somebody, because that's just a different level. I think a lot of times people want to pass off their insecurities and judgments on other people when they do it under the disguise of, it's my opinion. Okay, you could have kept it to yourself. But anyway, because I personally do think it's, it's vulgar. I wouldn't want my niece to listen to it. But at the same time, it's art. And I feel like a lot of times, things that are in your face like that, like they have to happen for you to understand that, like, we mean business and we are the owners of our bodies. And we can do what we want, how we want, when we want, and we will not be controlled, because we're in a time of evolution where women, we don't exist the same. Relationships don't exist the same. Men aren't the same. But I feel like, women are being held to such an outdated standard that people need to let go, because, if we want to do stereotypes, I mean, it's a lot of men out here. You don't even know how to change a tire, fix oil, but you want to talk about a woman who don't cook and clean. What do you do, sir? So again, it's just a fine line between it. I feel like you can have your opinion, say whatever it is you want, but at the end of the day, it does has its value, even among its vulgarity and whatever you want to describe it as. But I think it was cool, and if I could dance,
and some of the same people who would want to censor WAP, and I hope this don't get me in trouble, the same people who would want to censor WAP or Cardi B or Meg Thee Stallion, those are the same people who want to censor Black girls and Black women's historical, transgenerational sexual trauma within our own families, our own churches, our own street corners. So let's keep that real too. So that's all it's a hypocrisy to it. It's a hypocrisy to it. And so, Drea, is there anything that we did not ask you that we probably should have asked you today?
No, I'm just really glad to be on here with some dope Black women. I just want to say you got a big energy that's like flowing through this phone, Doc. And be here. Thank you for the magic you sprinkled amongst us little people. And Raven, I really appreciate you. And thank y'all for this whole situation. Aniah, I appreciate you being in the midst with your great questions. One thing I do want to just make sure I say, because it's just in me, is the fact that we live in a world that exists with limitless possibilities for all of us. And like whatever it is you desire to do in this world, you literally can do it so long as you believe it, speak it, and put in the work to have it. I remember when I was a bank teller and I